What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the TNT Smoke Factory. I'm your host, TJ Tilford, alongside my dad, Terrence Tilford. Week one of the playoff is officially over. There wasn't much to see, blowouts across the boards, but there were still a few things that we could learn from that week of football. So here's our top 5 takeaways from round one of the college football playoff. And the first one, number 5, is 12 teams still the move? Is it still what we want in college football? Throughout this first week of the playoffs, there were way too many blowouts, pretty much every game. Too many teams that weren't deserving to get in got in.
I'll pause on that, but go ahead.
And then home field advantage is overpowered. And I know why you said you'd pause on the not deserving piece. I'm not saying they didn't deserve it over teams that got in, that didn't get in. I'm saying simply they didn't deserve to get into the playoffs because the playoffs might be too big.
I think 12 can be a good starter piece, because if you don't go with 12, you're going to end up with solely a 2 to 3 conference tournament. And I don't think that's what we're looking for. We're looking for to have, just like in the NCAA basketball tournament, you end up having blowouts because, teams are matched up against other teams that they don't match well against. But every once in a while, you get that Cinderella story. I don't think if you go down to 8 teams, you end up with that same excitement. You don't get the Cinderella story. So I still say keep it at 12. Who knows what will happen? This year just happened to be a year where things ran chalk.
And I want to make it clear, I don't think 12 is too many, but this might have just been a down year where these teams weren't expecting this, because especially the home field advantage in this first round was crazy. You look at the crowds at Penn State and Ohio State, definitely made a difference in their games. Both those teams would have still won, but those crowds definitely made a difference. But I don't think 12 is too many. I think 12 is the right number. We just need to let it play out for a little bit.
Yeah.
You might want to make, changes to the way we do 12 to where some teams that don't really deserve a bye are getting a bye. But other than that, let's keep it at 12 for a little bit. We let the 4-team playoff run out for what, like 10 years? Let's give the 12 teams some time to marinate and really see what can happen.
What I would like to see is borrow a little bit from the NFL model. First of all, I agree with you. Just because you won your conference championship, you don't get an automatic bye. No, that rule needs to go out the window. Let's take the 12. Let's seed them accordingly. But then after you seed them accordingly, you reseed in the rounds to follow.
But to get to our number 4 takeaway, who's going to get the sugar? Notre Dame versus Georgia. We won't give you our prediction in this video. That video will be coming out shortly after this one. But who's going to get it? Notre Dame, in my opinion, has everything they need to beat Georgia. When you look at Georgia, their main thing is their lines. Nobody can really keep up with their offensive and defensive line. Now, what is Notre Dame known for? Having very physical and good offensive and defensive lines. They match up they're basically Georgia of the North, in my opinion. I think they match up very well against Georgia. They have a running quarterback. That's huge.
Yes.
Look at what Georgia Tech did when they almost pulled that upset off against Georgia. They ran their quarterback like crazy, and they have a strong defense against a first-time starter quarterback in Gunnar Stockton. So Notre Dame, everything is laid out in front of you to go win this Sugar Bowl. Who's going to get it? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting because as we'll talk about a little bit more, we talk about the strength of Georgia's team, and now their strength is really, if you want to be honest, is shifting more toward the having to be on the defensive end. And I'm looking at this Georgia team, and I think a lot of we're getting a lot of spillover from years gone by. And I think a lot of times we're looking at this same Georgia defense as if they are the Georgia defenses of the past. I'm not quite sure that's what is really taking the field this year.
Yeah, I'd agree. So we have to wait and see. That's our nightcap game, January 1st, Sugar Bowl, Notre Dame, Georgia. It should be a good one. We'll have to wait and see who wins.
Yep.
But to get to our number 3 takeaway, the SEC needs to stop crying.
Yes.
All your fans, all your players, please stop crying. Even all your coaches, Lane Kiffin, stop crying. Because you cried all Friday night when Notre Dame beat up on Indiana. You know, Lane Kiffin was putting out tweets, oh, what entertaining games, blah, blah, blah. Joel Klatt snapped back at him. And then Saturday, you started crying again when SMU went into Happy Valley and got dominated by Penn State. You cried when Clemson lost to Texas. And then once it came time to show up, Tennessee went into the shoe with about 30,000 of their fans and took probably the worst loss of the weekend.
Yeah, second to worst.
No, in terms of we thought it was going to be a good game.
Yeah.
And they just got ran out the building in the first quarter with like 5 minutes left to play in the first quarter. You might as well have called the game. Tennessee was getting beat up that bad. SEC fans, you guys got to stop crying and please stop moving the goalpost. Because I keep seeing SEC fans say, oh, well, Tennessee, they didn't deserve to be there anyway. They're the weak links in the SEC. Then why are they in over Bama, a team they beat? Why are they in over Ole Miss, a team that lost to Florida and UK? You know, so we need to stop moving the goalposts and you need to stop crying. Acknowledge the fact that this was a down year for the SEC. It is what it is. Acknowledge that and move past it. Don't cry about it. Just acknowledge it.
Yeah, you're hitting it right on the head. And then we look at this Lane Kiffin and you know everything that he's doing down there. My whole thing to him was win the games.
Yeah,
and I'm like win the games. You keep talking about what your schedule was. Let's not talk about your schedule. Let's talk about your results. And the results of your schedule was you lost games you had no business losing.
Florida and UK.
Yeah. I'm like, you didn't have any business losing those games, and you lost them anyway to subpar competition, quite honestly. So win the games you're supposed to win. Had you won one of those two, you wouldn't be in the position that you were in, that you're in now. So
yeah. Stop crying, acknowledge it for what it is, and move forward.
Yeah.
To get to our number 2 takeaway, though, a whole lot of red. The Ohio State Buckeyes left no doubt against Tennessee. I was at that game. There was a sea of orange all around the building. There was orange every which way you turned, orange everywhere.
Yeah, they made a statement. They showed up in good numbers, and hats off to them, man. That's a great fan base, to show up like that.
But even though they showed up, they were pretty much all leaving by the third quarter. If you saw my TikTok, I posted it. Everybody in orange was clearing out. Ohio State played their brand of football. Their defense looked scary. Will Howard played elite, and that O-line held up. Probably the biggest piece. That O-line, they held their own, created some pretty good run lanes for Trevion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins.
Against a defensive front that was highly touted coming in.
Very highly touted. This Ohio State team looked scary. You could tell they were fuming after that loss against Michigan.
Yes.
A loss they shouldn't have took. They heard all the noise about Tennessee coming in, all their fans. They heard everything, how they didn't deserve to be here, how they sucked. Oh, this Ohio State team is frauds. They put it all out on the line against Tennessee, went up 21-0 in the first quarter, went 3 for 3 on their first opening drives, and it was pretty much just never in question.
Yeah, that almost 4 for 4.
Yeah.
Almost 4 for 4.
That Ohio State team genuinely looked like the best team in the nation.
Yeah. Well, when you look at it from just a matchup standpoint, and you see where they were able to take advantage of matchups all over the field, that is a scary offensive unit. And even, in fact, that's a scary defensive unit as well. I mean, they were out there. Yeah. When we say they were out there cracking heads, they were literally cracking
you look
heads.
At what happened to Nico's helmet. His helmet was literally cracked.
And for them to be able to show the ability to really slow that Tennessee offense down. Now, I know everybody wants to say, well, Samson didn't play it, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not really sure if he would have made a difference, had he played. That butt whooping was coming no matter what Tennessee did.
Yeah.
There's a time when you just know that that you're not leaving that field with a victory.
We called it. We said this game was going to look a lot like Ohio State versus Georgia in terms of play calling a few years back. Ohio State, when they played Georgia, they had their best play calling. They were slinging it around, and they almost got the win.
Yeah.
You saw that against Tennessee, and I think, let's fade into our number one takeaway. I think you'll see that against Oregon. Our number one takeaway is a rematch for the Roses. Earlier this season, Ohio State goes into Eugene, Oregon, takes a 1-point loss to the Ducks. They still have that on their mind. Ohio State is coming off an incredible win, and they have revenge on their minds heading into Pasadena. Oregon, though, they bring that extremely fast and talented offense that simply at times look unguardable. I like the fact that I got to see Oregon's latest game and Ohio State's latest game in person. So I really got to see what both teams are bringing into Pasadena. And we know it's hard to beat a team 2 times in 1 year. It's happened recently with Georgia beating Texas 2 times this year and Washington beating Oregon 2 times last year, but it's extremely tough to do so.
Yeah.
Now, we're not going to give our predictions. We already said this. But Oregon's defense could be on shaky ground. If you look at Oregon's last game against Penn State, they were getting gashed all around the field in the run game,
tons of
and in the pass game.
Yeah.
Now, let me present something. If Oregon's D-line does not show up to play and Ohio State's O-line is still reeling off that game against Tennessee, watch out. Because if you give Ohio State the option to run and pass, it's over. There's nothing else to talk about. I don't care how good Oregon's offense is. If you give that talented team the ability to run and pass, they'll score on every single drive.
Because one thing that we saw in that game against Penn State is Oregon, although their offense was high powered and they were ready to go and everything, and when they were clicking, they were clicking. There were times in the game where you were just like, okay, what happened to their offense? They've lost the firepower. They've lost the juice.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just due to like errors or anything like that. They were just errors in terms of penalty errors.
Yeah.
It wasn't just that. They were just missing. Dylan was
especially
not
on those screen passes. We talked about it a few weeks ago.
Dylan Gabriel was throwing the ball in the dirt. The running backs were missing holes. Sometimes the offensive line could not contain the defensive line at all. There were times where Penn State really took control of the game when Oregon was on offense. So if Oregon does not remain consistent throughout the game and continually put up numbers the way that they need to, then it could get ugly for them. Because, this game, without even giving a prediction, I'm looking at this game, it's going to be a very high-scoring affair. I think it'll probably be the highest-scoring game of the weekend.
I think so as well. Nonetheless of how Oregon played in that Penn State game, this game feels like the national championship. And it's not only because it's a rematch between probably the greatest game of this season. It's that whole, I hate to use the word because it's so overused now, but it's the whole aura of the Rose Bowl. It's unmatched. We know this is the biggest bowl game out of all the bowl games. So we'll have to wait and see Ohio State, Oregon, January 1st, 5 p.m. on New Year's Day.
Going to be a great game.
Yeah.
Tune in.
That's our top 5 takeaways of round 1 of the college football playoffs. Make sure you guys stay tuned for our prediction video. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and we'll see you on the next one.